Hello, everyone. It's our great honor today to have Mr. Greg Tanaka, the Congressional 16 district candidate that's coming up in the upcoming primary election. And of course, this group has a focus on UC or college admission transparency in general, but I don't think we'll have to limit to that. So please check out the Q&A link in the chat. And if you have any question, you can add your question there. Or if you'd like any question to be addressed, you can also vote for any existing questions. We'll structure the meeting as follows. We'll ask Mr. Tanaka to give an opening statement, and after that, we'll open up for Q&A. Mr. Tanaka, please take it away.
Yeah. Well, first of all, Nan, thank you so much for putting this platform together and giving me a chance to chat with everyone. I'm also a parent, like many of you. I have a son and daughter. My son, he is a freshman now at Purdue, but he also went to Palo Alto High. My daughter's a junior. And, so for me, I have a fundamental belief that education is critically important. I think a lot of people also believe that. I think it's true because a more educated society means that we'd be more productive. So, for myself, when I grew up in a relatively poor area down in Southern California. And my dad, he never finished high school, and I saw kind of can you guys hear me okay?
Yeah, there's some noise. Can you please mute if you're not speaking?
So my dad, so I'm half Japanese American from my dad's side and half Chinese from my mom's side. And growing up in kind of a relatively poor area, we there were days that sometimes I'd go hungry for lunch. It was just pretty crazy. And I kind of dawned on me early on that education is critically important. If we ever wanted to kind of get into a better area, we had to get a much better education. So both my sister and I, we kind of saw the kind of economic situation my dad was in. And we both really try to study hard to kind of work our way out of it. I went off to Caltech and then Berkeley and studied electrical engineering, computer science, and so when my wife and I decided to have kids, we wanted to be kind of an area where our kids would have a chance to get a great education. So we decided to move to Palo Alto. My wife also went to Stanford and went to actually Castanlia, so a local Palo Alto high school here. And the hope was, of course, is that by living in a much smaller place than we could have lived anywhere else, by kind of sacrificing for our kids and giving them a chance to be in an area where they could get an amazing education, that this would help kind of set them in the right direction in life and give them a chance. And as my kids started to approach high school, I started hearing about the Palo Alto curse, and I'm sure there's a Cupertino curse and a Fremont curse and like these kind of curses around, where it's this kind of almost mind-boggling thing where there are kids who, like Stanley Zong and others, who have amazing GPAs, amazing extracurricular, like basically check all the boxes. They're not even getting into the most, what people would consider the lowest tier colleges, right? And we've moved from being a meritocracy where hard work, excellence, where really applying yourself counts, to one where it's quasi-random. It's more about your skin color. It's more about what city you were in or not in. And so, so for me, this is actually one of the reasons why I'm running for Congress is I think this is not right for the country. If you look at the academic performance of the United States, like high school kids versus other parts of the country, sometimes it's kind of lagging. Like a lot of countries have started to exceed us. And the only way our country is going to be successful is if we really invest in technology, we invest in our people. This is how we grow the pie. This is how we kind of bring up the quality of life for everyone. And so kind of one of the central points of, why so I'm also on the Palo Alto City Council. And one of the reasons why I ran for city council, I first got into politics. Because before then I was really, heads down engineer, very much a tech entrepreneur, really kind of not apolitical. I've started several companies, but one of the companies I was is a software startup or SaaS company. And I hear that the mayor of Palo Alto wanted to ban software development. He wanted to make it illegal to do software in our city, right? So like what um, Facebook did when they started here, or Google, or all these amazing other startups that started in Palo Alto. And so when I see people like that trying to block progress, because I view technology as a way, it's the one thing that can lift all boats. It's the one thing where everyone can do better. And when I see people um, basically trying to move us away from a meritocracy, trying to block the progress of technology, um, I feel that there's a need to push against it. So that's one of the reasons why I ran for city council was the fact that I don't think we want to ban software development in Palo Alto. I think we should just do just the opposite. In fact, I think we should encourage more entrepreneurship, not discourage it. And um, and the very first thing I did on city council actually was to kind of remove the ban, which is ridiculous in my opinion. Um, and so um, so in terms of running for Congress, some of you might know that I ran for Congress last year. And one of the reasons why I ran was kind of a similar situation was happening, right? So people are talking about, and you guys might not be following this very closely, but some people have been talking about banning or taxing unrealized capital gains. So as an entrepreneur, when you raise money for a company, you have a lot of paper value. Can you imagine like having to pay tax on money you don't actually have? I mean, it would totally kill entrepreneurship, right? It would kill innovation in this country. Um, or there are people like it actually did pass. There's provisions in the Inflation Reduction Act, which basically something like 100 different therapies in biotech have been kind of killed because of this. So there's a um, bunch of, in my opinion, wrong, um, ill thought out ideas of moving us away from a meritocracy, slowing our technology progress. Because I mean, right now we're about 8 billion people on this earth. I remember when I was a kid, people were talking about starvation, right? They're talking about, they're not running out of food and this and that. And, like none of us have to be farmers. My dad, when he was little, he used to pick cotton in the field, right? It's kind of crazy to even think about that, right? My dad, he's still alive. He picked cotton, right? To make money. And nobody does that by hand anymore, right? I mean, and so for me, through the technology progress that humanity has done, we're able to have more people at a higher standard of living than we've ever had in human history. I mean, we, in some ways, are living the best um, years of humanity ever, right? In the 100,000 years or however long humans have been on this earth. And I want that to continue, right? I think we want to keep on going forward, and you can't just take that for granted, right? Because there's been many um, societies that have come and gone, right? You look at the Roman Empire, right? You would never think that that would have fallen, but it's fallen, right? We had dark ages, we had where progress was reversed, and so progress can get reversed when the wrong incentives get put in place, right? So instead of having to study hard um, and try to achieve, um, you basically you could do just the opposite and succeed, and that doesn't make sense, right? We want to encourage the best out of everyone. That's how the economic pie for everyone grows. That's how we um, we have a better society, a more just, fair society, is by producing more, by letting people achieve as much as they possibly can. And this idea now of, at least when I was a kid, I can remember college admissions as being, like for me, I was like, at least in terms of STEM, I was probably the top of my class, right? I was probably the number one kid in terms of science, math, and all that kind of stuff in my high school. And so, I got into a lot of, Caltech, MIT, et cetera, et cetera. Um, but, I look at what's going on now. I look at my son, right? My son did also very well. I think he got a 1510 on the SAT, and he also got a really high GPA of over 4. And, all the varsity track, did a lot of different things. And I saw where he got in, right? I saw where his friends got in. And you get this thing where it's no longer a meritocracy. College admission, which is, the first step of people becoming, adults and professionals, now has become not a reflection of your achievements, but a reflection of your race, a reflection of where you live. And that's the total opposite of where I want to see this country, right? Like I want to see this country to do more, to so that everyone can have more, so that the quality of life for everyone can grow. And the only way you do that in a fair way, or the only way you do it in a way that doesn't, cause incredible rift between different segments of society is you produce more, right? And otherwise, you have the zero sum thinking, right? Where basically the only way someone has more is if you take someone from someone else. And if you do that, that is not a fun place to be, right? That is everyone's at each other's throats. So for us to have more, we need to have educated kids. But you got to have the incentives, right? Incentives matter a lot. I mean, as we probably all know, right? If you don't have the wrong incentives, you don't get the right outcome. And by having this kind of incentive of, well, maybe we should all move to poor performing high schools so our kids are not as well educated, that they don't need to work nearly as hard. I think someone posted something about like, I guess it was you, Steve, posted something in the chat here about how, like, if you move to some areas, you basically get a guaranteed admission to UCs, to any UC, right? Which is really ridiculous, right? And actually it happened to my son's friend. My son's friend had a lower GPA, lower SAT, but he was in the right zip code, so to speak. And so he gets in, and my son doesn't, right? And it's like, well, wait, how's that fair? How's that right? Like, what is going on here? So, anyways, I could talk on and on and on, but I wanted to give a chance for people on this call, and I think there's some questions to ask me questions, and I'll be happy to answer them.
That's great. So with that, maybe we'll move on to the Q&A section. And we have a tool called Slido. And if you look at the chat, there is a link to add your own question or vote for existing questions there. So we'll open that up and we can take the question from the top, and Grant can go over the questions. I think so far there are 19 questions. Of course, some of them are overlapping.
Okay.
But I'll get that started. I'll share
Okay.
my screen.
So what I'll do is I'll start at the top and then work our way down. And then
Yeah,
also,
so
I think if whoever asked the question, maybe you could just read the question, and then, oh, and then you could read it if they're not here.
okay, yeah, that sounds good. So we have, yeah, this is the question. Can everybody see it? All right, sounds good. So we'll start with the question from the top. The first question came from me. In this crowded congressional race, what's your how's your platform different from those of the other candidates?
Great question. So, I actually wasn't going to run. I was thinking, I love people.
I can testify that. Yeah, I heard about your race very last minute.
Last minute, absolutely. Yeah, I wasn't going to do it. I thought, there's enough people running. But I had a lot of people call me, say, hey, Greg, you should run. And I'm like, seems like enough people are running. And fundamentally, actually, I think this is the neat thing about America is, especially as consumers, we have a lot of choices. You go to the grocery store, there's like 15 different types of toothpaste or more. And so actually, I think it's a good thing that a lot of people are running. I think it's important that we we as voters have a choice of who we want. And as I was thinking about, well, do I run or not? I started looking at the other candidates, and um, I guess the big issue I have with the current candidate, and I didn't see them like anyone actually running on admission transparency or um or trying to promote R&D, right, in our country, because a lot of the wealth of our countries is because of the R&D that we've either the government has invested or we've encouraged entrepreneurs or companies to invest. Um, this is how we have a lead in AI, how we have a lead in all these other kind of fundamental areas is because of the investment we make in it. But I don't see anyone looking to address the issue that the IRA done to biotech. So the biotech provision in the IRA is going to kill something like 600,000 jobs of researchers. Like these are like PhDs trying to, solve, cancer, right? I mean, why would you want to do that? Why would you want to defund research and development of debilitating diseases, right? Nobody seems to be looking at that. The other candidates didn't, none of them seem to be addressing the fact that we're moving away from a merit-based type of, from education to economy. And if you take away the incentives, I mean, I look at China, right? So in the 80s, China, people were starving. I mean, I remember people used to adopt babies from China because China was such a basket case. And as they went from a kind of a communism type thing to which I think has been proven again and again and again not to work, as they went from a communism type of approach to a market-based approach, they went like 1 billion people went from poverty, right, to now the second wealthiest country in the world, and maybe eventually they may become the wealthiest. And it depends on how they go right now. But I don't see the other candidates. I was hoping not to have to run because I was hoping to see other candidates who would step in. I was waiting till the last minute to see if the other candidates would come in, who would really push on a merit-based economy, a merit-based education system, where we reward those that work hard, that innovate, that create value for society. But I just didn't see that, and so that's why I decided to run, and that's kind of what differentiates my platform from other people's. Is a lot of people have either very vague things or things that are more about like, oh, let's just take from this person and give it to another person. And like, I mean, that's just cause like incredible divisiveness, right? Maybe what we should do is we should have, a higher quality colleges for everyone. Maybe that's a better thing versus what we're trying to do, where say, oh, we're just going to like rejigger the scale about who gets admitted to our best colleges. That doesn't make sense. I think creates incredible divisiveness. It creates the wrong incentives for our society. I think the other thing that differentiates my platform is uh, I don't think there's anyone else with kind of a STEM background, with an entrepreneurship background. I think and especially one also who has served, like, so I've been serving on the Palo Alto City Council for the past 7 years. So I think that's another thing that differentiates me, is that I have a background both in politics as well as in tech. And so I think our country is where it's at in terms of being as successful as we have been. It's because of technology, because of the innovations that we've created in our country, from the transistors to CRISPR, to you name it, right? Our country's done it, and we want to encourage that. We want to encourage a pipeline of incredibly smart people to be very successful, to have the right incentives, so that um, I think it not just helps America, right? I mean, I think the whole world gets better, right? We have less poverty, less starvation, less human ailments by having better innovation in our country. So I don't know. Then does that answer your question, or I could keep going on, but
Yeah,
that's kind
I
of the
think I
gist of it.
got the message. Yeah, thank you
Okay,
for the question.
sure.
Yeah, the next one, I don't know who submitted the question. I'll read it. I'll leave the third question to Steve because I know that's his question. The second question is, how specific can we ask for the UC admission transparency? We will need to frame the proposed bill with specific criteria. Thanks.
Yeah, I actually, so this is one of my platforms. It's not just for my congressional campaign. It's not just for the UC. I believe all colleges that get federal funding should have a total open door policy, kind of like an itemized receipt, exactly like how did someone get in and not get in. And I think this kind of black box where it's just totally arbitrary. I read somewhere where It's more, it's more important by your zip code, or it's more important by like who was the mission officer that read your application that morning, right? I mean, it's like totally capricious. We move from a merit-based system to a system of randomness where hard work doesn't pay off, right? I mean, why do we want to have a society where hard work doesn't pay off? That doesn't make sense. If we want to have a better society, we want to encourage hard work, right? We want to encourage success. We want to encourage proficiency, right? We don't want to say, oh, okay, well, this demographic, this racial, this person with this skin color doesn't do well. So we're just going to like rejigger the scale completely. I mean, how does that make sense? That is not how we move society forward. That's not how we get um, a better standard of living for everyone. We get a better standard of living. Okay, I mean, there's ideas of, well, let's just print more money, right? We just print more money, and that doesn't, fundamentally, the wealth of a country is what we produce. Money is just a way to keep track of it. By printing more money, redistribution, we are not really helping. We're just creating this incredible divisiveness that we see in our country. So what we need to get away from is not focusing on how we redistribute the dollars, how we print more money, which, by the way, we printed so much money recently that it's like this is one reason why I have high inflation right now. But it's not helping. The way we help is by producing more. And the only way we produce more is we have people that are smarter, right? People that have incentive to work hard, right? That's how the pie grows, right? That's how we actually create real wealth, not by printing more money. Then, do you want to read the next question?
Yes, Steve, I think that the question's yours. Would you like to read it?
Sure. I'll read the longer version of it, which it didn't want me to fit in the post. And I think there's some overlap, and we've covered some of this, but I'll just blast through this and get to the question at the end. I actually cribbed this off of some college website. It's most of this, but so I could be in trouble for plagiarism anyway. So when you look at the data, and I think many of us are aware of this, and Greg knows, when you look at the data for high school admissions in California, and you're running to be a assemblyman member from California
No, not assembly, U.S. Congress.
Sorry.
Federal level.
Yeah, federal level congressperson in the from California in a district of, your message is perfect. I mean, we've got these high achieving students that are getting screwed by the UC. So you see the massive preferential treatment of some high schools, schools with low SAT scores, and the kids get in, and the kids from Gunn and Palo don't. And then they just paper it all over with the holistic. Oh, they say it's holistic. And now in our district, the majority of kids are driven and academically well prepared and ready to go out and, make the pie bigger through entrepreneurship and invention, right? And they get into Ivy League schools, but not the UCs. So they're disenfranchised. And here we are paying all these high prices for Palo Alto high school, Palo Alto housing and education, and then we have to send our kids out of state. And so as far as California being a hotbed of innovation, why are we shipping our kids out of the state, Anyway, so Greg, thanks. I think we're a lot on the same page here, but to focus on my question, how can we bring the UC to heal? We've talked some with students for fair admission. Somebody might want to spend 7 years and $8 million on another lawsuit, but I think people are afraid to take on the University of California. They're like the Vatican or something. They're like not exactly under the thumb of California. The federal government, doesn't want to take them on. Anyway, I've said enough. I think you see a question in there, so I'll stop talking and listen to your answer. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Steve. So I think the UCs, the Board of Regents, their main and only job should be to produce the smartest kids in the world. That's what their only job should be. I think there's so much emphasis on equal outcome instead of equal opportunity. And if we want to have more kids for a certain area, to get into certain colleges, then what we should do is we should invest in making those. I think it's like too late by the time you graduate high school. It's too late to try to help that student. It should happen at the very early age, at the start of kindergarten, right? So that education is high quality everywhere. If you want to have equal, if you want to have kind of more what people call equitable kind of outcomes, you need to do it there, not at the finish line. I think the problem with rejiggering the line at the finish line where I mean basically what's going on with UCs is because of Prop 209, they banned affirmative action. It's illegal now to do it on race, at least in the California and now the country with the Supreme Court. They use zip code now. So if you're from a zip code that happens to have a lot of Asians or a lot of people who they fear that are overrepresented, they will deliberately go to zip codes that don't. So it's basically racism, right? That's what it is. It's racism. And that racism unfortunately hits places like Palo Alto or Cupertino or Fremont or places like that. And it is wrong. We should be race blind. Your success shouldn't be determined by who your parents were, your ancestry, your zip code. It should be purely based on how smart you are and how hard you work. That's how we want to set up our society. We set up our society on anything else, we get this incredible divisiveness between people. This incredible unfairness. This incredible, we don't have a meritocracy anymore. We have just the opposite. We're not going to get the best. Our country is not going to stay number one. So our UC regents who are appointed, I almost feel like they should be elected, right? I feel like, the only other way of doing it is change the governor, right? And the UC regents is putting a thumb on the scale for admissions. I think they're degrading our colleges. Really, I mean, they need to get back to their job, and their job and only job should be make the smartest possible, produce the smartest possible students ever that the world has ever seen. That's what they should be focused on, not by trying to make up for wrongs at the finish line. That makes no sense. It's impossible, right? We want to have smart kids. We want to create the right incentives, and what the UC regents are doing is not right. So I think this should be maybe a bit of a litmus test as who's governor of California, because they appoint the regents, UC regents. But I think we need to have more control over this, because UCs are supposed to be the elite college, elite public. I mean, I went to Berkeley, so we want the UCs to be able to produce the best students possible. And with this kind of crazy policy they have in place right now, that's not possible. I think they're not fulfilling their mission.
All right, sounds like we need to find another candidate going for the governorship. Anyway.
Yes. Well, actually,
right.
I want to do this on a federal level, because it's not just UCs. I mean, it's not, and until recently, until the Supreme Court did the affirmative action thing, Harvard, right? If you were Asian or had an Asian parent, oh my God, God help you, right? And then you got this kind of this fluffy stuff where they could basically, I mean, it happened to like the Jews like 80 years ago or whatever, when they said too many Jewish people in the colleges, so we're going to like ban Jewish people. I was like, what the hell, right? That makes no sense. Like, I mean, now like too many Asians, so we're gonna like, if you're Asian, you gotta have extra 200 points now to get in the same place. Like, what the hell, right? Like, no, it should be totally race blind.
Cool. All right, let's move on to the next question. This question came from Ritesh Tanda. He's actually one of the candidates for Congressional District 17. He was not to join the meeting today, so I'll read his question. How to permanently stop Asian American hate crimes? Proposed bills like ACA 7, earlier we defeated Proposition 16, ensure fair U.S. admission policies across the U.S.
Well, I think the big issue is that I think Asian Americans, professionally we've done relatively well, right? I think from a culture, we work hard. We're taught very early on that education is really important. But so I'll give you an example. So I told my dad that I was going to run for city council, and my dad's like, No, I don't think you should do that. I think, you should keep your head down, your mouth shut, just work hard, don't cause a ruckus. My dad feels almost like Asian Americans, even though I'm fourth generation Asian American, right? So my great grandfather came here in 1880, right? 1880, that's over 100 years. He feels like we're guests in this country. And and I think for Asian Americans, we tend to be very apolitical. We don't really follow politics. We don't get involved. We don't donate. We don't volunteer on campaigns. We're just totally apolitical. And the result of that is that we're like the carpet that everyone walks on, right? Whether it's college admissions, whether it's the glass ceilings, or whether it's whatever it happens to be, we even though we tend to, you know, uh, work really hard and do a lot of really great things, we don't get the credit, the recognition. Um, and I think that's a fundamental issue. I think Asian Americans need to step up. So then I told my dad that's running for U.S. Congress. My dad's like, Asians aren't liked in California. If you want to run, if you want to stay in politics, you got to move to Hawaii. Like that's the only place to be successful. I'm like, what a bad attitude, So um, no, I think we as Asian Americans have every right to be in this country. We contribute just as much, if not more. If you look at the crime rate that Asian Americans create, is one of the lowest. If you look at our economic output, is probably one of the highest per capita. So no, we have the rights to be in this country. We have the rights to be represented. We have the right to for our kids to have the same chance of everyone else's kids. So no, I think it's this kind of anti-Asian thing from the Asian hate crimes um, to college admissions. This is it's basically racism against Asian Americans. I mean, it's like my dad when he got out of the camps. So I don't know if you guys know, but all the Japanese Americans, right? My great grandfather, my grandfather, my dad, all got put into these concentration camps during World War II because they're Japanese American for no other reason but that. And my grandfather, my dad's dad, died when my dad was only like 4 years old or something. And but when he got out, like if you're Japanese American, it was like the kiss of death, right? You couldn't get a job. Didn't matter how educated you were, right? You couldn't get a job anywhere. That's why there happened to be a lot of Japanese American gardeners, right? And you might have seen a lot of the Japanese American nurseries was because you couldn't get a job if you were Japanese American. You were the devil. If you were Japanese American in California after World War II, it was crazy hard, right? And so we have this history of just being walked on, right? From the Chinese Exclusion Act to college admissions to, I mean, I don't know if you guys remember, like we had the shooting in Atlanta where these 7 Asian American women got killed. And the sheriff or whoever was talking on TV was saying, oh yeah, it's not a hate crime. The guy was just having a bad day. Like, what the hell? Like, who has a bad day and kills 7 Asian American women? It's just totally, totally uh I think the crimes against Asian Americans tend to get like de-emphasized, right? And it's like, you know, the pain we feel is no different than the pain that other people feel when people die. And so I think that the rights we need the same kind of rights as everyone else. It's not right that we get second fiddle, even though we do more. It's simply just not right. It's pure racism and it needs to change.
All right. Okay. Yeah. So we have 21 questions. Actually, people still are adding questions. So the list is getting longer.
Sure.
If you want to stick with 1 hour, maybe we'll have to move slightly
Well,
faster.
I have time after, so I could keep. I'm
Okay.
happy to go through all of them.
Okay. Already. That's wonderful. All right. So let's move on to the next question. Teresa, are you in the meeting? No, if not, I'll read her question. If APIs make greater financial donations to the UCs, public institution, do you think this will help move forward more towards more equitable U.S. admission for API students?
I don't think so. I think um, so um, I think the UCs they have like a strict um thing of I think what we have to do actually is fund political campaigns. Unfortunately, it's politics for a lot of Asians is like kind of a dirty thing. Like my dad, he's like this total thing of like not getting involved in politics. But I think we have to get involved. I think the way we change it is we have to make this an issue for who's governor. We have to make an issue for who's running for Congress. We have to make an issue for who's on our school board, for who's on our city council. It's got to be an issue, right? It's got to be, it can't, if we don't step up and get involved politically, we will be the carpet that everyone walks on, right? We will not get the fairness that's deserved. Unfortunately, donating to the campus wouldn't do it. It's got to donate to the political campaign. We got to replace who's on the board of regents. That's basically what has to happen. And who controls the board of regents is who's governor. And if I get elected, what I will do on Congress is on a federal level. It shouldn't just be in California. It should be every state of the union, all 50 states. No one, right? We shouldn't be basically replacing affirmative action with zip codes. That's basically what we're doing. We're basically the UC is basically has this racism. It's no other way of saying it. It's just racism, where they basically to get this equal outcome rather than equal opportunity, right? So I think this is a big thing. We need to focus on equal opportunity, not equal outcome. To get this equal outcome situation that they want, they will admit people who are woefully unqualified to get admitted or much less qualified, and they do it by zip code, right? And that's why we have this the Palo curse, right? Why we have the Cupertino curse, and it's just simply wrong. It is racism. It's racism in a different way, and it needs to stop. And if I get elected, that's one of the things I want to shoot for is passing a bill to prevent this loophole to do racism, because that's basically what it is. It's a loophole to do racism, right? It's basically to say, oh, there's too many Asian Americans, so we're going to anywhere there's a lot of Asian Americans, we're going to basically make it super tough for those kids to get in, right? And that's just totally wrong. That's just racism, and it needs to stop. And all of the attempts to create this kind of racism needs to stop. Just plain out stop. So, if I get elected to Congress, that's what I'm going to do, right? I'm going to do it on a federal level where no college, whether it's Harvard, whether it's Berkeley, whether it's whatever it is, no one should be doing this. It's just simply wrong. It's unfair. It's not right. It should be totally race blind. That's what it should be. It should be meritocracy. So, why don't you go next one?
Thank you. All right, just a reminder for folks who are not used to the Slido website, you can actually vote for questions. Then the questions that are with highest vote will surge to the top. For example, Tony G's 2 questions are now on the top. So if you have any question to address sooner, you can vote for the questions there. All right, so move on to the next question. It's from Tony. Tony, would you like to read the question? I believe I saw Tony earlier in the call. Oh, I don't see him anymore. Okay, I'll read the question. The California Democratic Party are again gutting Proposition 209 with ACA 7, adding exceptions to the equality clause in the California Constitution. What's your stand on ACA 7?
So, I think one problem with our state is we're like a one-party state. I think we need competition. I think competition is good in all cases. Fair competition, right? That is not competition where if you're Asian, you're screwed. Like I said earlier, racism is racism, right? Whether you do it by zip code or you do it when depending what box you check on the application, or you do it by what your last name was or what you look like, it's just racism. It needs to stop, right? Racism is wrong. I get the attempts of get more diversity on campus. I get all that. But the way you do that is not at the finish line. It's got to start at kindergarten. It's got to start at, grade school. It's got to start at junior high. It's got to start early in life. It can't be starting at 12th grade. We're going to try to make up for it now. That's just ridiculous. So we need to stop this at all levels, whether it's admissions, whether it's employment, whether we need to move to a race-blind, merit-based economy. So I think I don't want to spend more time on this because I think I talked about it enough. So maybe let's go on to the next question so we get more of these questions addressed.
Okay, so maybe a summary, would you oppose ACA 7?
I haven't read it all in depth, but basically I'm opposed to any and all policies that tries to force the outcome versus merit. I'm into a merit-based system at all levels, whatever it happens to be. So it should be based on, we should be blind to your race, where you live, where you grew up, how much wealth or not wealth you had. And it should be purely based off of your intellect, your work ethic, right? What you produced, right? That's what. So I think we need to move that, because that's how we grow the pie. We don't grow the pie by rejiggling it. So, I'm not up enough on ACA 7, but so I would just say that's kind of like my philosophy. So if ACA 7 is not aligned with that philosophy, then I totally oppose it then.
Okay, yeah, it's people call it another reincarnation of a Proposition 16 with some exceptions. So next question is related. Maybe
by the way,
one
I voted against 16, so if there's another 16, I'm
Oh,
yeah.
okay, yeah, okay. Then that probably pretty much answers the question. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, the next question is very much related. Maybe I'll slightly reinterpret Tony's question as, do you have to say your party affiliation, given that you know, you're opposing Proposition 16, whereas every Democrat in the state legislature voted yes on Proposition 16 and
So-
ACA 7?
Yeah, so if anyone follows me on city council, I'm not sure how many people here in Palo Alto, but if anyone follows me in Palo Alto knows that I'm an incredibly independent voter. I think I see so many politicians, they vote with their party because it gives them political power. And I'm like, what the hell? Like, why do we serve? Right? We don't serve to enrich ourselves, to get more political power. I mean, we should vote on what's best for our constituents, and that only, nothing else, not for what's best for us. But I see so many people that vote not for what's best for the constituents, but vote for what's best for them to get more political power. And so, like, for me, I will not toe any party line, whether it's Democrat or Republican. I will look at what's best for the people that I represent, and I'll vote that way. And that's the only way I will vote. Even if it means that I don't need a committee, even though it doesn't mean I don't become chair of whatever. Like I serve to make sure that the people I represent do well, right? Not that I do well. And I think it's so wrong that there's so many people that told them, and this is what's wrong with our current Congress, is that people are not voting for what's best for the country. They're voting for what's best for them politically. So they get that chairmanship. They get, you know, the chair of finance or whatever it happens to be, right? That is not why we should be serving. I mean, if you look at the founding of this country, like Jefferson and Washington, these guys were kind of like part-time politicians. They were farmers first, and then politicians as a hobby. But now we've got this political class where their only job is not to be entrepreneurs, not to create any value in society per se, but it's to just stay in office. Like, what the hell? So for me, I am totally I mean, right now in California, because we're a one-party state, you have to be a Democrat, right? But I am totally not beholden to any Democratic Party. I don't expect to get a Democratic Party endorsement. I'm not even going for it. I am going to be purely voting on what's going to be best for the people I represent, and that's it. And if it's against the Democratic Party, so be it. If it's against my political future, so be it. And anyone that's watching me on City Council for Palo Alto knows that's how I vote, right? I'm not beholden to any group, special interest, party, whatever. I don't think that's how our democracy should work. Our democracy should work where every representative votes for what they believe is going to be best for society, not for what's best for their political party, for their political career. That's just wrong. That's not why we should be. I don't believe this kind of career politician thing. I think it's wrong. It's not how we get the right results.
Thank you. Maybe as an extension of the question, as a practical one, what's the difference between running as a Democrat versus running as an independent?
The difference is how people vote. So if you look at how much time people spend voting, like the people here are probably different, right, on this call. But if you look at the average person, most people will vote in about 10 minutes flat, right? There are probably over 100 names, maybe 200 names, 300 names on a ballot, right? That means the amount of time they spent voting per candidate, the amount of time they researched it is seconds per name. And so a lot of times people vote purely on party, like, oh, you're a Democrat, I'm going to vote for a Democrat. It has nothing to do with anything else other than that. And so now it's probably easier to clear the primary as a Republican, especially because there's so many Democrats running. But in terms of general election, you cannot win. It's almost hard to win because people just vote party line.
Gotcha. Alrighty. Okay, maybe we'll move on to the next question from Anonymous. Do you think this effort cannot achieve its goal unless DEI is removed from U.S. education system? Should we call a larger effort?
Yeah. So again, I believe in equal opportunity. I believe that we want to give everyone a chance to get a great education. I think there are some places where the school system is really messed up and we should fix it. That's what we should do. But we can't fix it at the finish line. And all this crazy attempt to fix it at the finish line, whether it's, promotion at in a company, or whether it's, getting admitted to Harvard or whatever it happens to be, it can't be done at the finish line. It's got to be all this kind of thing where we want to, get more racial balance or whatever it happens to be, needs to happen much, much earlier. Not at the end where it should be. It should just be purely merit. Whether you get the job or not, whether you get that promotion or not, whether you get admitted or not, all should depend on merit based on your achievements, on your capabilities, right? I mean, if we get to a society where it's just based on, your skin color, based on what zip code, on who you know, we get this incredibly corrupting, inefficient, devolving society. And I don't think that's any society any of us want to live in. We want to have a society of more, not less. And the only way you have a society of more is people produce more. And the only way people produce more is you have the right incentives and you reward merit, reward success, not failure.
Okay, gotcha. All right, so we have 17 questions left. Okay, this one's probably a repeat. All Democrats in the state of California legislature voted yes on Proposition 16 and ACA 7. Had you been a state legislator, what would have been your vote?
Okay, I voted as a voter. I voted against 16, and if ACA 7 is like more about like let's try to make it legal to do racism, I'm totally against that. So I think I answered that. So let's move on to the next one.
All right. Okay, next one, maybe a more interesting one. I heard you're using AI for your campaign. Can you share more details?
Yeah. So like when people write to me at City Council, I set up my day job is I'm an AI entrepreneur, so I use like OpenAI. I do a lot of AI all day long, and I believe it's one of the most transformational technologies in our lifetime. Maybe as big as the computer and the internet. Perhaps I think perhaps a lot bigger. And this is actually one of the reasons why I'm running is because previously to win a campaign, you just had to raise a boatload of money, especially for federal office. For city council, you just knock on a bunch of doors and win. But federal, like this district, there's like 1 million people live here. It's crazy. It's a big district, and you can't even send a postcard out without raising a lot of money. It's just impossible. But I actually believe that with AI technology, we can make our democracy more egalitarian, more efficient, more transparent. Because like if you look at some of these bills, like there are these like they're like these kitchen sinks. Everyone throws everything in there, and they're like tens of thousands of pages. It's impenetrable. But you can actually stick that into ChatGPT now and know what's going on, right? You could actually follow what's going on, right? You could figure out what's going on. You could figure out what the person you elected, what they did or didn't do, right? So I actually think that AI is amazing. And I think in politics, I think it's going to be, it gives a chance, like for my scrappy campaign to have a chance because before the only way you could win is purely with just boatloads of money. That's the only way you can win. And now I think with AI, you can actually scale a campaign without having to scale the dollars. So that means like I haven't released it yet, but I'm gonna put this chatbot on. I have the back end, but not the front end, where you can chat with me. So like you can ask me anything. I have all my policies in it. So because if you look how much time people spend on websites, it's like less than 30 seconds. You gotta get an answer quickly, right? They don't want to be sitting there and combing through like, I have a lot of policies on my website, but people don't have time to kind of go through everything. So basically, I just think this is a way to level the playing field. And this is probably the first campaign season cycle that there's this kind of the availability of this technology. So I think we're going to see this kind of, I hope this kind of leveling effect. At least that's what I want to see. And one of the reasons why I'm running is because of that.
Awesome. All right, let's move on to the next question. What do you think of the recent congressional testimonies by the presidents of Harvard, MIT, and the University of Pennsylvania?
So, I think despite what you might think about what's going on in Israel, let's just bring it home. Um, and if there is people are being whether you're Jewish or Palestinian or whatever or Asian, right? If you're being tormented based on your race, that should be against any and all like code of conduct at any university, right? Universities should be a place to learn, right? It shouldn't be a place where you get discriminated against because of what your heritage happens to be. That's just simply wrong. And I think that um and racism shouldn't only apply to one race, right? It should it's basically we should be totally race blind. And so if people are being um are being discriminated against, tormented, harassed because of one race or the other, it needs to simply stop. This is not the purpose of our colleges, of our universities, especially our most elite universities. It needs to be based off of like it should be merit based. It should I think the president of Harvard, MIT, and UPenn should have said we're going to put a stop to any and all harassment based on race. And if it's against code of conduct, it needs to stop. And the unwillingness to like do that, frankly, I think it's good that some of these people got removed, right? And then you see some people like have these things of plagiarism, which is a whole other issue, which is again, people should become president of Harvard based on merit, on the quality of the work that they did, on how good of a manager they are, how good they are at recruiting, not based on the race. It's just crazy. It doesn't make sense to do it any other way.
Okay, thank you. Next question. Since you're running for Congress, this question would eventually come up on international stage as well. Would you support Ukraine with military aid?
Yeah. So I think we need to think back about why did Russia invade Ukraine, right? I think one of the issues is Ukraine was looking to get membership into NATO, right? And so just like for the United States, we wouldn't be happy if Cuba had nuclear missiles pointed at the United States, right? I think probably Russia also has something similar. So I think we have to think about the geopolitics a little bit more. I think I'm worried about Ukraine becoming another like Iraq. We were in there for like decades or something like that, right? Because wars in general are not a good thing, right? Now, I don't want to see Putin like doing what Hitler did and roll across Europe. I don't want that either, right? So I think we have to be very clear on that. But I think we also have to think about like what are the causes, and I think we want to make sure that the uh, the taxpayer dollars that we're sending like billions upon billions, right? Which could be there to be used to make our education system better, right? Could be used to maybe fix some of our crumbling infrastructure, right? So I think we just have to think about like what's going on there. So and then you hear stories about incredible corruption at Ukraine, where people are becoming like incredibly wealthy through the grift that's going on of the taxpayer dollars, where the money's not even getting to Ukraine. It's basically these intermediaries are just accumulating. So I think we have to look at all that stuff. But anyways, I think I just certainly don't want Russia taking over Ukraine, but at the same time, I don't think we want to spend hundreds of billions of dollars of taxpayer dollars in this kind of war. I don't think it makes sense.
Okay, all right. So let's move on to the next question. With early polls showing Sam, Joe, and Evan in the lead, what's your plan to break into the top two in the primary?
Yeah. So basically, I'm going to use AI technology. That's basically it.
Okay.
I think that's going to be a great equalizer. I think there's probably no other time that this could have happened. It couldn't happen last year. Like last year I ran. It's not going to happen next year. I mean, next year it could actually happen. It's the first cycle where AI could be applied, where you could actually get to know a candidate without me having to knock on every single door. That's just totally hard. So hopefully soon I'll have a little chat on my website where you guys could go talk to me anytime, ask me any question and get an answer. So, and I hope that this will allow you to allow more transparency about who gets elected, where you don't have to get elected and be beholden to a bunch of special interest groups. I think it's corrupting. And so I'm hoping that this can level the playing field where you don't have to be, the guys like those 3 guys you mentioned are guys who can raise millions, multiple millions of dollars for the campaign. And the problem with that is that you become beholden to those people that give you those money, right? You have to vote a certain way, right? You can't vote what's best for your constituents. You gotta vote what's best for your donors. And for me, like, in fact, so far I've been totally self-funded, so I don't owe anyone anything, right? Basically, I'm going to vote on what's going to be best for my constituents, and if my constituents think that I'm doing a bad job, then I get voted out, and that's okay, right? That's how it should work. It shouldn't be something where once you're in for life. That's crazy, right? And that's what happens, right? Is because, especially in Congress, right? Congress has the highest reelection rate, where people are kind of autopilot. Once you get in, you're kind of autopilot because you get more money and all this kind of stuff. But it's incredibly corrupting because the representatives are no longer representing the people that they're supposed to represent, right? And so if these people get elected, they're going to be beholden to that money, to vote the way that money wants them to vote all the time, instead of what's voting best for the people of their district.
Okay, cool. Thank you. Next question is probably covered to some degree already. Maybe just add your concrete proposal if you want to emphasize anything.
Well, I think I would basically ban any form of loophole around affirmative action, right? So any type of thing we're going to do racism by zip code, racism by any other way, right, needs to stop. Just plain needs to stop at all levels, right? At all states, right? It's just the Supreme Court said this is racism, okay? And we need to respect the highest court of our land. And until that gets overturned, it needs to stop. And all these attempts to kind of do these loopholes around it, these end runs around it, like saying, oh, okay, you're in Cupertino, you're in Palo Alto, so you're like you must be Asian American, so we're gonna screw you over. That needs to stop. Absolutely stop. Simple as that. So I'll pass bills to make sure that happens. That you can't do the zip code kind of thing. And I think the way to police it is basically have open transparency, right? So everyone gets a detailed, every single thing that was factored into the missions needs to be made available to the students. So there's no hiding behind this. Oh, it's this holistic process that we can't tell you how it happened, right? It can't be like that.
Okay, next one. Again, on the thing of the national politics, what's your thoughts on the partisan gridlock in Washington and frankly in most states too?
The problem here is that people are beholden to the party. They're not beholden to the people. And so and so me on city council, we have this kind of faction stuff going on too, but I vote incredibly independently. I'll vote for what's I believe is best, not for what's best for me politically, for what helps me become, get better assignments, whatever. But that's what happens. Like a lot of these politicians, the reason why they vote the way they do, not because they know better, right? They know that the constituents don't like it, but they know that if they don't do that, the party won't support them, right? They won't get the committee assignment. They won't get this and that. And it's like, again, why are we serving? I mean, it's kind of serving, right? It's not kind of enriching myself. I mean, if otherwise we got to change what the purpose of being elected office is, right? And so these people need to move from self-serving to serving the public. And so for me, one way of solving it is like is to vote very independently, right? That's how we get past this partisan, because not all the ideas the Republicans have are bad, and not all the ideas the Republican Party have or the Democrat Party have are bad. But we have this thing where people dare not vote for each other's thing, even if they're good ideas, because they lose their assignments. And for me, if I lose my assignment, I'm okay with that. Right? I'm like, that's not why I'm serving. I'm not serving because I'm a career politician. I'm serving because I want to do the right thing and make it better for us.
Gotcha. Thank you. Next question, slightly unrelated to the national politics. The City Alto Palo Council, what I learned, I find it a surprise. It pays $1,000 a month.
Yeah. And
just clearly below poverty line. Do you think that should change?
No, but it's different. It's not a full-time. And I really don't believe, like, in fact, I kind of like how Palo Alto, it's a part-time thing. It's not is not a career, right? I think
Mm, mm.
politics is I mean, I think it's okay to be a career as an engineer or a career as a doctor or a career as a carpenter or whatever it happens to be. But a career politician, I think is, we're a representative democracy. We want people, like for me, I'm termed out after this for city council, but even if I'm not termed, I'm not going to run again.
Mm.
And I could, if I took a break, I could go run again, but I'm not going to do it because like I think our democracy functions best when there's a diversity of people, when people kind of rotate in and out, when people have experience in the private sector and serve in the public. I like the idea of Thomas Jefferson and George Washington, people, the founders of our country, where these people, George Washington, he could have been king, he could have been, president for life if he wanted to be, but he didn't. He let rotation, like people rotate in and out. His main gig, the way he really made his money was his farm, right? He didn't make money as being president. And so I think this idea of there's this professional political class is just wrong because I think it creates wrong incentives. So I don't think that serving should be like a high paid job, right? I think serving should be a temporary thing that we do that and people rotate in and out, right? And if how I think and how I vote is not right for the people here, I should get voted out. I'm okay with that, right? That's the way it should be. It shouldn't be this thing where it's a profession for life. That is just crazy. I don't think that's how our
Mm.
democracy is set up. I don't think that's how we get good outcomes. I think this is how we get partisan politics. I think that's what happens, right? This is how we get this dysfunctional, political system is by these professional politicians. So I think this is absolutely wrong. And so for this, the vote came up for trying to enrich ourselves and vote more money give ourselves a pay raise, right? I voted against it. I was the only one to vote against it. Because I just think it's crazy. That's not why we serve. It's we're like more like board members, right? We're not operators, right? Um, I think it's corrupting. I think career politicians are corrupted, in my opinion.
Thank you. Okay, next question. What are your thoughts on increasing civil engagement of the Asian community, particularly in elections?
I think that Asian Americans need to step up. I think the problem is that we do what my dad a lot of people think like my dad, like keep your mouth shut, head down, don't get involved. We're guests in this country. We just need to change that mentality because until we do, we're going to get this kind of affirmative action. We're going to get this, like we're going to get this thing where it's like, oh, okay, too many Asians living there, so we're going to dox that zip code, right? We're going to get that kind of stuff. Uh, like even in companies, right? Especially for East Asians, right? If you don't start to come yourself, you almost don't get to the top tier, right? It's almost impossible, right? You get this kind of also this glass ceiling thing going on, right? And it's like it's just simply not right, right? I mean, in order, like I said, in order for our society to do well, we need to produce more. We need to make it a merit-based economy, not a you know on your skin color, on your ethnicity, on your heritage. It shouldn't be on that. It should be totally independent, right? Purely merit-based. But
Okay.
Asian Americans need to step up. We need to figure out how to get involved. I really admire the Jewish American community because they're actually not a much smaller percentage of the population of the United States, but they donate like heck, right? They volunteer on campaigns. They run for office. You know, they, you know, they get very involved, right? And so they have an outsized political voice for their population. But Asian Americans would do just the opposite. We don't donate, we don't volunteer, we don't run for office, we do everything but that, right? And I think I'm hoping that more Asian Americans will step up because if we don't, we're going to get like the Atlanta shooting. We'll get like like a lot of hate crimes against Asian Americans just don't get prosecuted because we don't have a voice. We're seen as a as a as a group of people that people could just walk on and there's no consequences because we simply don't vote. We don't show up at city council meetings, right? There's no Asian Americans that show up at city council meetings, right? I mean, we don't get involved. We simply don't get involved. We don't make transparent admissions a litmus test about am I gonna elect you or not, right? You don't make that a litmus test for governor of like who's gonna be governor, who's gonna appoint that board of regents, right? And as consequences, we're like I think the saying is either you're at the table or you're on the menu. And so often Asian Americans we're on the menu because we we focus on everything else but politics.
Yeah, thanks for doing this for the Asian community. I think we have a lot to learn from you. Okay, next question. I think this is relatively a repeat. What's your thoughts on the ruling on affirmative action this year and Proposition 209 passed in
It's great.
1996?
Well, it's great. It's great. I think the Supreme Court was right. I wish it happened sooner because my son, he wasn't a benefactor of this, or Stanley, or all the other parents who had kids. Like it can happen soon enough. Well, hopefully, it's
I heard that the early admission for Stanford admit a lot more Asian kids than previous years.
I wonder why.
I have nothing to substantiate it.
I wonder why, right? I mean, it's like, one of my relatives, she got a degree from UCLA, Japanese American. But if you were Japanese American after World War II, it didn't matter you had a degree from UCLA. Now, this was very exceptional back then, especially for, an Asian woman, right? And but you could get a job anywhere because she was Japanese, and because the people in California got confused with, the Japanese in Japan were not the Japanese here in America. The Japanese Americans got incredibly discriminated against. Like you can't believe. Like my dad, just walking to school, he'd get beat up. He got beat up so badly once that he got hospitalized. He decided to drop out of high school, so he never got a high school education as a result. Right? That kind of bullshit needs to stop. It keeps on happening. It needs to stop.
Okay. All right. Next question. What are your proudest achievements and regrettable moments as a Palo Alto City Council member?
So my proudest achievement is I got software legalized. So in Palo Alto, they have allowed uses like laundromats, restaurants, retail, etc. But software is not one of them. And so the mayor at the time thought that it was great to make software illegal. Actually enforce the ban on doing software like Python coding, right? Make it illegal to do Python coding or JavaScript in Palo Alto. And so the first thing I did when I got on was I legalized it. I think it was like we had 9 people at the time. I think it was like a 6-3 vote. So 6 of us thought legalizing software in Palo Alto was a good thing. 3 people who got elected thought it was a bad thing, right? Probably my most regrettable moment was I don't know if you guys know, but Palo Alto highly discourages creating a startup out of your house, right? So like, what Facebook did or HP Garage, technically illegal, right? And so I try to legalize that, and it was I think a vote the other way, so I lost that vote. And even now, in fact, there was I don't know if you guys watch HBO. There's a show called Silicon Valley, and they had this one episode called Server Farm, where basically these guys are like, this is Silicon Valley for those that don't watch it. It's a story about the startup they're working out of this house, right? And they have the server farm in the garage, and their neighbor is going to blackmail them because in Palo Alto you're not supposed to be running a company out of your house. And anyways, the whole episode was about this thing, but it's such a like a lot of people in Palo Alto don't know this, or a lot of people don't know about this kind of crazy thing. But that's probably my most regrettable moment is because I believe we want to encourage entrepreneurship, right? When you start a company, you start with nothing. You start at your kitchen table, right? You don't start with millions of dollars and open up a fancy office on University Avenue. That doesn't happen, right? I've just done a lot of startups, and it's crazy hard. We want to make it easy to be an entrepreneur, not hard, right? Because most startups will fail. Most founders get paid a fraction of what they would get paid doing anything else but a startup. And so we want to make it easy to be an entrepreneur, right? We want to make it easy for you to start companies because the odds are stacked against people when they start a company. They put everything on the line, and most of the time they're going to fail. 99% of the time they're going to fail. So why make it tougher?
Thank you. All right, next questions. Why are you running for Congress? I think you touched on this a little bit, but I wonder if you have anything to add.
Yeah, basically, I want a merit-based society. I want us where the best rises to the top, no matter who your father was, what your last name is, what you look like, right? I think a market-based economy has proven there might be better ways out there, but so far this has been proven to be the best system humanity has ever created. If you compare against feudalism, socialism, communism, the market-based economy has produced the best. I mean, our country, this dynamism has been amazing, and I want to continue that. I think we want to encourage this, right? We want to encourage this kind of market-based economy. We want to encourage a merit-based society. We don't want one which is divisive, where it's oh, you're Asian American, so you're gonna be screwed today. That makes no sense.
Thank you. Next one. Do you have any asks for the audience here?
Yeah, I tried to send out a link, but I have a link that I sent out. Maybe I'll post it into the chat here. But it's my website, and
Okay, I can also send it to the wider audience later for
yeah,
those who are not.
if you can send it to wider audience. But basically, I have a policy that I have on transparent admission. I'll love it for people to have a little comment section on it. Let me try to actually, can I share my screen?
Yes, please go ahead. I'll stop sharing here.
Let me share my screen real quick. Okay, can you guys see my screen?
Yes.
Okay, so I have this. This is one of my policies, which is emission transparency, fair emissions, basically. And I'd love for people to kind of read what I have here. And if you can, comment below and share with others and comment below and tell me what I got right, what I got wrong, because I think I'm looking for the best ideas. And so this is I actually hold office hours every Sunday. In fact, Nan, you were on my office hours once, right? And
Yes.
I do this because I believe in order to really represent people, I need to understand people's issues. And I can't pretend that I have a lock on all the best ideas. That's simply impossible. So I believe in actually talking to a lot of people. In fact, I love talking to people who oppose my point of view because I learn more. I want to make sure that I make the best decision. I make the best decision by people giving me feedback on what I did right and what I got wrong. So, if you guys can, put your comments on this link here, share it with your friends, have them put comments on here. That would be totally awesome. I'd really appreciate it because I want to make sure that I'm pushing for the right kind of policies as well. And I can't pretend to be like know everything. I think that's simply just not possible. I know more by getting feedback. And so if you could do that on this page, that'd be great. I have a bunch of other priorities here as well. You're welcome to kind of go through them. And I think I see so much and there's like nothing on there. So I don't know how you vote for people like that, where there's nothing on the website other than I'm a good guy. So go through my stuff and tell me what I got right, what I got wrong. I really appreciate it. Share with others and have them do the same thing. One day soon I'm gonna have a chat bot here where you guys could actually talk to me anytime, 24/7. Um, and Yeah, and if you guys, like what you see and want to support the campaign, you could volunteer, you could donate, you can volunteer. So there's many ways to get involved. And I think what's most important is no matter what, whoever you support or don't support, get involved. I think it's really important because I think our democracy functions better that way.
Okay. Sounds good. Yeah, by the way, Jason, thanks for sending the link. Okay, let me restart sharing the screen to the next question. Okay, what's your position on the Taiwan-China relationship?
So most of our semiconductors, in fact, some of our most advanced semiconductors, all of our GPUs essentially come from Taiwan. I used to be in the semiconductor industry, so I know a bit about this topic. And so we cannot let China take over Taiwan. I think it would be, I think our country would be totally crippled. I think that would be a big time trouble. At the same time, we don't want World War III. And I think what we need to do is I think people that trade with each other are less likely to go to war with each other because both sides have a lot to lose. And so I think we need to, I think over the past few years, we've been kind of reversing. I used to actually, for my last job, I used to have an office in Shenzhen, China. And I think when countries traded with each other, I think we want to encourage China to move more towards a market-based economy. I don't know whether we ever be able to move them to a true democracy, but I think we don't want war because this would be probably the worst war we've ever seen. They have nuclear weapons. They have a lot of people. We are still very big trading partners, and I think the economic consequences, the amount of death would be terrible. At the same time, we cannot let them have Taiwan, not until we have more semiconductor plants here in our country. So that needs to be a priority. We need to build these fine geometry, like the the sub-nanometer type plants here, so we could have the GPUs being produced here. I think that's really important for just national security, for so we're not at risk that TSMC is going to fall. in the hands of China. I think that'd just be a terrible, terrible issue. So, so we need to defend Taiwan. Like if China wants to take over Taiwan, we need to defend. But I think we could totally prevent that problem by really, because I think some of the people are trying to roll back our relationship with China, having more of a we're not going to trade with China type of thing. I think we do just the opposite. But I think if we're big trading partners, less likely we're going to go to war with each other.
Okay. Next question. And what's your thought on the national debt?
Oh, it's crazy. I mean, it is, you know, people think that when the government prints money, they're creating value. That's not how value is created. Fundamentally, only way value is created is we produce more, and the only way we produce more is we create the right incentive for people to do so. Right? We create incentives for smart, hardworking people to do more. That's how the wealth of the country grows. All this idea of just printing money like crazy. I mean, like anyways, if you guys print like the charts of the money supply, it is absolutely bonkers what's going on now. Um, uh, we need to stop printing. Really, the focus needs to be because when we print money, what we're essentially doing is redistributing. Redistributing money, redistributing the wealth of the country. We are basically taking from people without we're taxing people without actually taxing them, right? That's what's going on, and we need to stop that. I mean, right now the dollar is is kind of like the uh, international currency. But as we devalue it, as we print money like crazy, you know, like China, they used to buy a lot of our national debt, right? They don't want to do that anymore, right? Russia certainly doesn't want to do that now because they see that we use dollars as a weapon, and as we debase our dollar, um, uh, you know, we basically we fade into dark into the night essentially. And we make all of ourselves less wealthy. We distort the economy. I mean, there's just so many bad things that happen. So we need to focus on what really is going to matter, which is educating our youth, getting people productive, increasing the economic output. That's how we improve things, not by printing money.
Okay. All right. Next question. Is the goal of asking only admission transparency too narrow or self-interested?
No, if the economy grows, if we get qualified people, very educated and incentivized to produce more. Okay, let's say we don't do this. Let's say we go to the thing where um, we're going to make sure that every single university matches the exact demographic of the country, right? Let's say that was the policy. We're gonna do this total racism type thing, and you know, and Asian Americans are just gonna get screwed. What does that teach our young, right? It teaches our young that hard work doesn't pay off, that being smart and getting good education doesn't matter. That's what it teaches our society. So we're gonna have a generation of people that are gonna have the wrong kind of attitude, right? Our country, United States, we are where we are because people come to our country with nothing, absolutely nothing. And, you know, like they create like these billion-dollar companies, right? When they come here with absolutely nothing. They did that through merit, through hard work, being smart, getting good education, and they create an incredible number of jobs. And um and by um having this incredible distortion, this incredible unfairness, this incredible racism in our college admission process, we are teaching our young that hard work doesn't matter, that being smart doesn't matter, that getting good education doesn't matter. All that matters is your skin color, where you came from, your heritage, right? And that is wrong. We should be in a society where there's no such thing as being white or being Asian or being anything. It's just purely you're a good human or you're a bad human. That's it, right? We should be judged on not our name, what our parents' name was, what we look like, just purely based on our output, on what we produce, on our character. That's what it should be based on.
Okay. All right. Next question. Does it make sense to make it step one of the larger goal of addressing the deeper issue of the DEI-oriented U.S. education system?
Yeah, I mean, I think it again, um, can't focus on the finish line. I think that's one problem with DEI is focus on the finish line, not on um, equal opportunity. I do believe in equal opportunity. I mean, I grew up in a very poor household, and I was able to get into Caltech, which I feel fortunate. Um, but it's like everyone needs the opportunity to be able to get a good education. So if the school system really, we should not have any school system that sucks. Really, we shouldn't. They should go out of business, or we should close that school, open a new one, or charter schools, whatever it takes so everyone should have access, should be able to get access to good quality education. So I do believe in that, right? I do believe like like I come from a household where my dad, no high school education, right? My sister's a surgeon, right? I get to live here in Palo Alto. I went to Caltech in Berkeley, right? I've been a CEO, right? Et cetera, et cetera. I mean, we want that to be able to happen, right? We're kids from a father who had no education could have incredible opportunity. We want a society like that. And so we want to make sure that we have mechanisms so people can get this most amazing education. And anywhere we have this bad education, where the school system sucks, that needs to be overhauled. It's inexcusable. We should not have schools that suck, right? Where, like I remember when I went to school, oh my God, I used to fear for my life. Just walking to school, people beat me up. Just like I ended up being a very fast runner, not because I was on track, but because I was trying to avoid the bullies. People were trying to rob me, right? I mean, we shouldn't have schools should not be like that, right? I mean, it should be a place to learn. We can get a great education. So any school where people like fear for their lives, we need to fix that school, right? We need to invest those dollars in that, not on the finish line and saying, oh, okay, this group, they couldn't get to the finish line, so we're just going to lower the bar big time to let them in. That makes no sense.
Okay, all right. Final question. Yeah, thanks for staying on. Meritocracy is the top few percent. So by definition, most voters will not be part of it. How to make them vote for meritocracy, which they don't belong?
I think what it is fairness. We want to be fair. Like, I mean, the reason why communism doesn't work is because it, the more, so I've hired and managed a lot of people. And one thing I learned, is incentives. Incentives, you get the right incentives, you get like incredibly like high producing company or group of people. You have the wrong incentives and nothing happens, right? You get the incentives wrong, nothing happens. And you look at why communism is a beautiful idea. And in the family, it's kind of communism, right? We don't expect our kids to pay for ourselves. It's not a market economy inside a family, but it doesn't scale. This idea of this communism doesn't scale when it goes to a large number of people um, because the incentives are wrong, right? It doesn't reward hard work. It doesn't reward for people to do well. It rewards everyone to do the same because no matter how hard you work, I just recently watched a movie called Tetris. I'm not sure you guys watched it, but basically it's about this guy who started Tetris um, and how he spread it. It's a great entrepreneurship story. But anyways, the guy who actually invented the game was in Russia, and even though he invented the most popular game ever at that time, he could get no incentive to no rewards, right? So it's the problem is if you screw with this incentive system, if you don't create the incentives for people to do fabulously well for creating incredible value. Like I look at Elon Musk and I see those rockets, they land. It's like total sci-fi. I mean, I every time I see that, I'm happy for humanity. Yeah, he's the world's richest person, but that is okay. Look at what he created. He created EVs. He created the most eco-friendly thing ever, right? He created, we could become a spacefaring civilization, right? I mean, we could maybe one day like put a human on Mars, right? We move society forward, and yeah, he's become the richest person on Earth, but that's okay. Look at what he created. You want to create these incredible incentive systems because the reality is, as an entrepreneur, most entrepreneurs are going to fail. They're going to lose money. Okay, they're going to make a lot less money than they ever made before, and so we want to create those incentives for that to happen because most of them are not going to make it. So you got to create incentives at all levels, whether it's entrepreneurship, whether it's a company, whether it's education. The incentives got to be right because if you don't have the incentives right, you look at like communism, right, in Russia and in China, you have starvation, right? You have incredible, like you have death camps. You have this incredible incredible, like unproductive societies. And capitalism, market-based economies has shown to be the best when you have large number of people, right? Be the best system ever. The best because it's been the best highest producing system ever. So we want to encourage that. And if you start making it where it's like not merit-based, where it's like, your race instead of the content of your character, you basically start moving towards communism, which is incredibly inefficient, which is proven again and again and again. You go to even that thinks communism is great, go to Cuba. Look what Cuba is, right? Cuba is like a total basket case. It's like we don't want that.
Yeah. I will add that maybe the question here is a little bit of a narrowly defined, because everybody would benefit from colleges producing the best of whatever. When you're seeing doctor, you want to see the best doctor. When you're using software, you want to use software that's produced by the best software engineer. I don't think anybody wants to use something
Absolutely.
less.
So because we live in a capitalist society in the United States, a market-based economy, we have the best standard of living humanity has ever had, right? The poorest people in our country live better than kings and queens did 100 years ago, 200 years ago, right?
Yeah.
I mean, people used to die, like women used to die at childbirth. Kids like a lot of kids would never like live past the age of 1, right? People would be starving. But the reason why that's not happening today, why people live for a really long time now, is because we have incredible technology. Like I have this iPhone here that has more power than the whole space program did, right? I mean, and it doesn't cost that much. My wristwatch probably has more than that, right? I mean, it's because of meritocracy, right? It's because the best and brightest worked their ass off, took the risk to make it happen. And so we want to encourage that. And when we don't encourage that, basically society falls behind. We get to follow Rome. That's what happens. Because it's not guaranteed that tomorrow's always going to be better. But I believe if we invest in meritocracy, so if we make a priority to invest in R&D, to invest in the next generation of GPUs, and next generation of cancer fighting drugs, we will all live better, right? We'll cure diseases of aging. We will be able to colonize Mars one day. We'll be able to live to 200 without any effects of aging, right? We'll be able to have better educated kids. So I mean, there's so much. I believe humanity's best days are ahead of us, not behind us. So the idea of there's some people who want to keep things in stasis, like, oh, the best days were like 50 years ago or 100 years ago are totally wrong. Because 50, 100 years ago, people died of polio, right? People had a really hard life. It's not a good thing.
Cool. All right. Any last minute question from the audience? Any live question?
Well, I just wanted to thank everyone for. Oh, actually, Jason, do you have a question? Please go ahead.
I don't have a question. I just can give you some comments. Greg, this is my first time. I did not even know your name before I joined the Zoom meeting, but I really appreciate you spend the time. Basically, it's the end of this year, December 30th, Saturday. You spend time share with us your thoughts, your idea. I cannot agree with you 100% what you said, but I really appreciate that the key points that I learned from your about 1.5 hour presentation Q&A session. The key, I am also a first-generation immigrant from mainland China. So what I learned is that the history told us we should not have the discrimination based upon the heritage, your color of the skin. And we are living right now in 2023. It's not like 50, 70 years ago, even 100 years ago. Technology made our life a lot better than before, but we should fight for serving the country, not self-serving. And we should encourage a system that is merit-based, effort-based, not only the heritage-based. So I think your focus about the increasing the transparency, at least starting from the UC system, and you're running for the Congress to the federal level. And the other point that you emphasize that you are not going to stay behind only based upon the party that you belong to. You're going to vote for the benefit you'll be representing, and you will not only run for the state level, you'll run for the federal level, Congress level. I think a lot of things I learned from you, from your personal story, from your family story, and I fully support the idea that I wish you the best luck to your running. And I think the other thing, I just finished my point, is that Asian people, especially the East Asian people, should not only focus on wealth, technology, in terms of these realities that the politics. Even personally, I do believe politics. A lot of things are very dirty to me. Again, and then if you don't fight, you will not get any equal treatment. And I respect the ideology about the so-called diversity, equity, and inclusive, and even respect the fairness. But everything you have to drill down the details. Otherwise, it becomes just a slogan. I think everything is detail driven. I just pause here. I really appreciate I also spread this Zoom meeting through my social media. And I think the entry level to this Zoom meeting is a little bit difficult, because first thing is about language. Many of the first generation immigrants, they don't even understand English. Okay, I think the politics is a little bit high level in terms of civilization. But I just pause here. I used to serve as a president of Troy High Parent Student Teacher Association for several years, and both of my kids graduated from there. I had some also my personal story. I really appreciate also Nanjong shared his own story and made a huge effort to try to do this. I think again we have to make very clear, it's not only for fighting for Asian, Chinese people, it's fighting for all people. And even we talk about our focus is on USA. I think if I'm not exaggerating, globalized, we should, it's not an ideology, right? I'm already close to the age of 60, right? The system should be like encourage people to fight with good heart and a good heart, and fight for themselves and also fight for the society. It's not a self-service. Even you think about from the nationwide, you also cover the little bit more broad political topics about world war, about the racial issue currently, right? And I'm just pause here. And I'm going to spend more time to do a little bit of self-study. And thanks again to all people, sitting in the audience, and also for the opportunity to watch whatever you just gave to us. Thanks again, Dan.
Thank you, Jason.
Yeah, thank you, Jason. Thank you for comments. And pretty sure Greg would have a much easier life and probably make a whole lot more money by not getting into politics.
That's definitely true. Politics, but I don't think politics should pay, because I just don't think it should be a career, right? I just think I think it's only become a career recently. Like at the founder of our country, it wasn't a career, right? The founders of our country were not career politicians. But now
they all run their own business. They're lawyers, they're farmers. They all had their own business. Yeah, they're not.
I kind of love that about the founding of our country, right? But now we have people where, like the person to come in, she was in office for 50 years, right? It's like, how does she? Because I'm an entrepreneur, because I'm in the tech sector, I understand some of the issues that people are facing. But if only in elected office, you never touch the private sector, how do you even know? Like, how can you represent, right? I think what you do is you represent your donors. That's what happens.
I think that's a very fair question. Yeah. Alrighty, thank you so much for staying longer than intended.
No problem.
And
thank you
so much for actually running the campaign and representing the community's voice. And if there's anything more that you think this group can be involved in your campaign, please let us know. Okay, will do. All right, I look forward to your link when you have the video ready to be public.
There's a link. Do you have the where's it being recorded? Is it my computer or your computer? I have no idea.
We'll figure that out. I'm pretty sure it's on one of our computers.
Okay, sounds good.
Okay, alrighty. Thanks for coming. Thank you, everyone. Happy New Year.
Okay, Happy New Year.
Happy New Year. Bye.